Little Bee by Chris Cleave.
Little Bee is a narrative story about a Nigerian asylum seeker named Little Bee and a British magazine editor who meet during the oil conflict in Niger Delta and are reunited in England several years later. Together, they endure the struggles of their lives and aim to help each other.
When reading this novel, it's very important to keep the historical context in mind. Taking place during the oil conflict in the Nigerian Delta in 2004, many people were attempting to flee the country because of the horrible things that were being done to the people there. Chris Cleave actually wrote this book to reflect things he had experienced in his life. This story is influenced by Cleave's work in an asylum detention center while he was in college, as well as by his childhood in West Africa. And its main theme is the plight of asylum seekers in Britain. The novel also explores themes of British colonialism, globalization, political violence, and the role each individual person can play to make the world a better place.
This leads us directly into the major purposes of the novel. Cleave's main purpose in writing Little Bee was to show the world what it's like for asylum seekers in situations like hers and how reluctant people are to help them. Sarah, the British journalist Little Bee meets, serves as one example of someone who wants to help asylum seekers and show the world the horrible things refugees have to go through in order to find a safe place to live outside of their country.
Although this book was written 10 years ago, the things it talks about still apply to our world today. You could directly compare the refugee crisis from the Middle East to Little Bee's situation, in that many countries are willing to accept refugees, whereas others think they should go back to their home country. We see this negative energy portrayed by Lawrence in the novel, who is the man that Sarah is having an affair with. At first he wants Little Bee to be sent back to Nigeria because she's an illegal, but then he somewhat warms up to the idea of helping her. The conflicts in this book are actually internal, and this is caused by the narration style of the book, which is first person, but it actually alternates between the perspectives of Little Bee and Sarah.
Little Bee versus herself. Throughout the hardships that Little Bee faces in her life, she's always contemplating suicide as an aid to escape them.
So Little Bee versus society is shown not only in her home country, Nigeria, where the men are trying to kill her, but also in London, where it seems that nobody actually wants her to be there. Sarah versus herself. So this internal conflict is actually caused after she loses her husband, Andrew, and that she doesn't really know where to focus her attention, whether that be on her job, her son, or Little Bee, this refugee girl who just showed up to her door, or even the man that she was cheating on her husband with, Lawrence. So there's a lot of mental turmoil kind of going on with Sarah, but she's able to figure it all out in the end.
The colors yellow and black are referenced in many different forms throughout the novel. Two of the most important times being the name Little Bee and Sarah's son, Charlie, being obsessed with wearing a Batman costume 24/7. The color yellow represents hope and all things happy, black representing evil and everything negative in life. For Little Bee, black is the ideas that she has about killing herself all the time, so that she can save herself from all the bad things that could potentially happen in her journey towards safety.
The mixture of these two colors and people who are so naive and innocent in the novel show us that every person in the world possesses good and bad.
A lot of Little Bee's fears, the black in her life, stems from the idea that men are evil and bring destruction. She always begins her stories with, "The men came and they," showing readers that she has developed a bias against men since she associates them with all the horrible things that have happened during her life.
Throughout the novel, Little Bee actually describes men using words like gray, black, and white. And in the complete contrast, she describes women as glowing and golden. And when Little Bee arrives in London, the men that she encounters aren't very nice to her. Andrew and Lawrence are the strong male characters that Little Bee goes to for help, yet neither of them want to help her, ultimately contributing to the novel's theme of the negative roles of men.
The prevalence of the color yellow in the novel, mainly as mentioned by Little Bee, is what gives the book a faithful and sometimes lighthearted tone in order to contrast with the darker times. Showing that Little Bee finds things to look forward to, like the sun, the Queen, and all the things associated with England, reminds the readers that she is human and is still a child. This sense of hope that Little Bee possesses can be directly seen in her attempts to make the world a better place. Chris Cleave portrays Little Bee as a dreamer not only because she's young, but because she wants to show that one person can make a difference in the world.
So at the end of the novel, Little Bee and Sarah actually end up traveling back to Nigeria in order to interview refugees who have endured the same kind of pain that Little Bee has because of the oil crisis. They then hope to take these stories and actually publish articles in order to raise awareness and eventually evoke change. This is placed at the end of the novel in order to spark a flame within the reader and to give them the idea that they are capable of changing something in the world, even if they are just one person. This same sense is seen in Charlie, who spends his days dressed as Batman, ridding the world of villains like the Penguin and other baddies. 4-year-old Charlie actually believes that he is saving the world. Although it seems like you need to be naive in order to think that you can do something this large, Chris Cleave wants the readers to use these ideas and come to a realization that even if you are just changing one person's life, you can have an effect on society as a whole.
Now we're going to read you our 3x3, which is refugee evades persecution.
Tragedy provokes desensitization.
The
and
men came. The first line of our 3x3, which states refugee evades persecution, kind of shows Little B and how she leaves all the violence and things that are going on in her country and actually becomes a refugee.
And then tragedy provokes desensitization kind of shows how Little B was just so numb to everything around her because she had gone through so much, and she was living her life in fear, which eventually led her to become numb.
And the last line, the men came, holds a lot of power in the novel because this is what all the girls and guys' refugee stories begin with. The men came. The men coming into their countries and killing their family or trying to hurt them. And also, Chris Cleave actually included this line because when he was writing this book, he went and researched a bunch of refugee stories for the book, and they all started with the men came. So he felt like that was something he needed to include in the novel.